Get mapping, create a new cloud Spring Initializer to delete request. Hello everyone, very warm welcome to Think Constructive. I am Isha. Today I have got an extremely important session for you, that is session on REST API with Spring Boot. In this session we will start with some key concepts of REST API followed by some important concepts of Spring Boot. Then we will start building the Spring Boot basic application and will convert that application to REST API for a particular scenario. So I'm sure this session is going to be very useful for you. So please follow along and watch the complete session so that you don't miss upon anything. And I also would like to mention that this is one area which is very widely used in the software industry. So for all the Java programmers, architects or leaders, this session is going to be very helpful. All right, so let us start with the key concept discussions of REST API. Okay, so let's have a look on some important points of REST API which you should know before starting to build the application. All right, so REST APIs are also called as RESTful APIs. These terms are used interchangeably. Okay, full form for the REST API is it's a representational state transfer, and point to be noted here, it's not a protocol or any standard, it's rather the architectural constraints. Okay, and APIs are application programming interface. So the combination of REST and API is the REST API. So for implementing REST APIs, the API developer should implement or should follow these set of architectural constraints which are provided by REST, and then only that particular API will be called as REST API. All right. So some more key points for REST APIs which you should know. REST APIs work over HTTP protocol. So that means whatever operations are supported by HTTP should be supported by REST APIs. For example, GET request. Okay. And it delivers information using any of the following format. The most popular format is JSON format. Other than that, it can deliver information using text, HTML, XML, JavaScript and much more. Okay, so I'll show you demonstration also wherein you can see and relate more stuffs. Now we'll have a look on some key points for Spring Boot which you should know before starting to build the application. So here are some key points related to Spring Boot. Why Spring Boot is so popular, so famous? Because with the help of Spring Boot, you can easily create a standalone production grade Spring based application. Okay. So to create a Spring based application has become much more easier with the help of Spring Boot. It comes already with the embedded Tomcat, Jetty and one more server which is not mentioned here, that is Undertow. All right. It provides starter dependencies already. It automatically configures Spring and third-party libraries, so no need for any developer to go ahead and do all the basic configuration in so much of detail. Rather, it comes already with the starter packages, starter dependencies, starter libraries and embedded servers. So many more things are already provided. So to begin with, developers should know how to write the core logic and the core concepts of Spring Boot. That much will be sufficient. Okay, so it makes developer life easy once developer really understands all these structure, architecture of a Spring Boot in detail. Okay, and it provides future production ready features such as health checks, matrix, etc. So these kind of services are very important when any application is deployed in the production. So any application, whether it is working fine or not, all those health check metrics are really important, and those things are already provided by Spring Boot. You just need to configure, plug and play those things. You need to build up those services, integrate, deploy, and things will be done. No code generation, no XML configuration. So all those kind of stuffs are not at all needed here. So thanks to spring.io website, I have taken a couple of points from there, and these are really very good, important to know and essential points any Spring Boot developer should know. Okay, now I will show you certain key annotations which I will be using while building the Spring Boot application now. Okay, so I'll just tell you about all these annotations. So first one, the foremost important annotation for a Spring Boot is a Spring Boot application. Any Spring Boot application, a starter point will have this annotation, and this annotation is a combination of enable auto configuration, component scan and configuration. So this is the combination of these three annotations. Okay. Then we have REST controller annotation, which will indicate the Spring Boot application that this particular class is the controller class and all the related REST stuffs will go in here. Okay. Then we have request mapping to indicate the context path, get mapping, post mapping, put mapping and delete mapping. All these annotations we'll be using in our demonstration. So watch the session till the end so that you don't miss upon anything. I have showed you all the initials which we will be using in our demonstration. Now I will show you which service we are going to make. So we will be making Cloud Vendor API with the help of Spring Boot, and we will make REST API for this. Okay, so this will be our model class, wherein Cloud Vendor model class we will be building first, and it will have properties as vendor ID, vendor name, vendor address and vendor phone number. Okay, so 4 properties we will be building for this demonstration. And what my Cloud Vendor service will look like? It will be a Cloud Vendor information service. That means this service, whenever anyone will call this service via GET in order to get any Cloud Vendor information, it should be able to give. Or POST will also be supported in order to create a new Cloud Vendor information. Put will be supported in order to update any Cloud Vendor information, and delete will be supported just in case the created Cloud Vendor information is not needed. So in this demonstration, I'll be creating a Cloud Vendor information service which will be supporting all these 4 operations: get, post, put and delete. There will not be any DB interaction I'll be creating. Rather, for demonstration purposes, I will be creating some hard-coded values to show the functionality of all these 4 operations. So that means using Spring Boot, how can you create CRUD operations of REST API and how you can interact. So this is the agenda for the demonstration which I'll start now. Okay, so first I'll show you how you can create a basic Spring Boot application. So I'll be showing it via Spring Initializer. All right. So what am I doing? I'm building a basic Spring application first with the help of Spring Initializer. All right, there are other ways also, like you can directly add Maven dependency to your application and convert it to the Spring Boot application. Okay, so here is a Spring Initializer. Here you can say whether you want to use Maven as a build tool or Gradle. So like in my case, I will proceed with the Maven project, language Java, and in Spring Boot, whichever version you would like to have. Okay, so let's say I'll go ahead with the default version, that is 2.7.1. Okay, you can give project metadata. Like in my case, I will give group ID as com.thinkconstructive. Okay, and in artifact ID, whichever you would want to say. So let's say I want to give REST demo. All right. Description and package name will be auto taken. Description, if you want to modify, you can go ahead and do that. I would like to have packaging as jar, and Java different versions it is providing me. So let's say if you have Java 8 in your system, you can proceed with that. Or if you want to have 11, 17 or 18, whichever, you can have that. Let's say in my case, I'll proceed with Java 18. Okay, and since I target or I want to build REST API using Spring, so I should add the dependency here for building the REST API. All right, because Spring Boot by default will not come with the REST API dependency. I need to add that. And where will I get that? RESTful API dependencies I will be getting inside Spring Web. So I should be adding Spring Web dependency. All right, so I have selected that, and now let's say generate. It will generate a basic Spring Boot project for me. I've got, you can notice, I've got REST demo zip here. Okay, I can just Save this zip and extract in any Java editor. So like in my case, I use IntelliJ IDEA editor. You can use any Java editor of your choice. It will be totally supported. All right. So here is the IntelliJ IDEA editor and the project REST demo which we have just now created with the help of a Spring Initializer. I have extracted and opened here. Okay. So the project structure, what we are getting here, we are getting src, main, Java, typical structural folder with one Java class which is REST demo application. Alright, so REST demo application, let us just open and have a look at it. This is my REST demo application and this is the main method, and inside this you can see a Spring application.run method is called. Okay, and here if you notice, you are getting add Spring Boot application annotation, which we know is now the combination of 3 annotations. We have got all the essential stuffs of basic Spring Boot application here. Let us now quickly check the pom.xml also. What dependencies are we getting here? So what am I getting? I am getting Spring Boot starter parent, so which is my Spring Boot dependency. And what else we have added? We have added Java version as Java 18. We can see it now here. And we have added the Spring Boot web dependency because we want to create REST APIs using Spring Boot. So all the dependencies are also in place. Okay, now first let us execute and see the results. What are we getting here? And then we'll start creating REST APIs. All right. So run. What am I getting here? My Spring Boot application has started, and let's now spend a minute here on the logs. What you can see here, Tomcat server started on port 8080 HTTP with context path blank. Okay, and next what are we getting? Started REST demo application in these many minutes. So that means my application is successfully started and the server which is being used is Tomcat, and the default port of Tomcat is 8080 which is being used here. Okay, so my Spring Boot application is successfully up and running. If you notice, we didn't add any Tomcat here. All right, it is automatically picked up because this is a Spring Boot and a Spring Boot brings Tomcat embedded in itself. All right, now we should check whether my application is actually working on this port 8080 or not. How do we do that? I'll just switch to the browser window again, and here I'll just say local host 8080, enter. So it is not telling me that there is no service running or nothing on 8080, rather it is taking me to some error page because we haven't coded anything. All right, so by default application is redirected to error because it doesn't have anything to serve to us. All right, now let's start making the REST APIs. Okay, first what are we supposed to create? The model which is my cloud vendor. Okay, I'll just show that slide again. See, cloud vendor API we are supposed to make. So first we should have cloud vendor with these properties. How should we have that? We'll be creating a model class for that, and then we will be creating cloud vendor information service. All right, here I'll be adding a model class inside model folder, and I'll just give the name to this is cloud vendor. Okay, so I've got a class here called cloud vendor. What I'll do, I'll create the properties which we have just now discussed. Vendor phone number. All right, these 4 attributes we need, and we should now generate the constructor and getter setter for this. Okay, so I can directly say generate from here, and first let me just generate the constructor with all the 4 parameters. All right, let me fix the indentation. Yeah, okay, we should also have an empty constructor. So I'll just say generate constructor select none. Okay, so I have got an empty constructor in place. I have got constructor with arguments in place, and what else now I want? I would want to have the getter and setter for all these four. Alright, so I'll just say getter and setter. I'll select all because I want getter and setter for all the four attributes. There you go. Okay, let me just fix the positioning of all these stuffs. Alright, so I've got my cloud vendor model class with all four attributes, its related constructors, and all the getter and setter methods. Okay, so now the next step is I need to create a REST API which should be serving all four CRUD operations for this cloud vendor. Okay, so let me go ahead and add a controller class for that. How do I do that? I'll just say new Java class. I want to create it inside controller because to have a good package structure, folder structure is always very, very helpful. All right, so we'll just say controller dot cloud API service. Okay, I'll create this class. And what do I do now? First thing, how Spring will know that this is the controller class? I should annotate it with REST controller. Alright. Also, I want to have a context path as slash cloud vendor. Okay. So what do? I need to put another annotation called request mapping, and inside this I should give cloud vendor. Okay. Now, first method we will be creating is for getting the values. So, get request I will be creating. Okay. So, let's say I will create cloud vendor because that is a model class. So, I want to return the complete object. And what do? I will just say get cloud vendor details. All right, and what I want to pass inside this is string vendor ID. Okay, because on the basis of certain vendor ID, I should get the complete vendor details. All right. Oh, there is a typo. I'll just fix it. So it's cloud vendor. So what do I do now? I should return, because I said we will be building an application with some hard-coded values. So I'll just say return new cloud vendor, and it should have some values. So let's say vendor ID. I'll create the vendor ID as C1. Okay. The next parameter was vendor name. So I'll just say vendor name as CV. I'll just give vendor name as let's say vendor 1. All right. Then vendor address. Let's say address 1 and phone number. I'll just say vendor phone number XXXX. Okay. So what are we returning? I'll just shift it to next line so it is more readable. Okay. So we are returning cloud vendor object with these values. Okay. So this is the get method we have created. How Spring Boot will know that this is the specifically get mapping or get API? We should put an annotation called get mapping here. All right. And in this get mapping, what value we are expecting? We are expecting vendor ID. Okay, so we have just now created a cloud API service. I think cloud vendor API service is a better name because that is more explanatory. So let me just refactor it. I'll just say refactor and rename. All right, I'll put cloud vendor API service. Yeah, this looks better. All right, so cloud vendor API service we have created with one method as get cloud vendor details, which should be serving the get request because we have put an annotation called get mapping here. Okay, so let us bring up the Spring Boot application. I'll just say run. My application is now up and running again at port 8080. And now let's go ahead and see when we say localhost 8080 slash cloud vendor slash some ID, what do we get? I'll switch back to browser window. So here is my browser window. I'll just put localhost 8080 slash context path slash c1. Okay, let us see what do we get. So we have got the details whatever we have returned from our get cloud vendor details method. All right, so my get method get API is created. My service is listening to port 8080 and with the help of this context path it is able to return me the desired value. Okay, I'll now show you how can you test this with the help of Postman also. Okay, so there is a tool called Postman which is very important in the API or web services world. For testing any REST API, Postman tool is very important to know. What you need to do, all you need to just say plus create new collection. Okay, I'm just saying REST demo 1. Okay, so I've created a collection and inside this I can just say add request. Okay, request 1, and here I can say the way we have given in our browser window. All right, so I'll just give the same URL here. Method is selected as get and will send the request. What have I got? I have received the same response which we have got in the browser window. Okay, why am I showing you this tool? Because I will further going ahead and showing you the post, put and delete which cannot be tested from the browser window. For that you should be using this Postman tool. There are many other tools, but this is the most popular and simple to use tool. All right, so I'll just terminate the server now. I'll go ahead and create a post mapping also, which will help me to create cloud vendor details. So next I'll be creating the create cloud vendor details. For that I have just taken a cloud vendor object and here let us return this cloud vendor object itself. Here let us return this cloud vendor object. Okay, why am I doing this? Because now I will be creating a create cloud vendor details, will be filling in details in this object itself, and the same value should be returned with the help of this get cloud vendor details. Okay, so what do? I'll just create a public method. We should return a string value whether it is successful or not. All right, and I will just say create cloud vendor details. Okay, and what should it accept? It should accept the cloud vendor object. Why? Because the cloud vendor object we will be receiving in the post request as a request body itself. All right, so for that matter I should be putting a request body annotation also here. Okay, since it is a create request, so I should put post mapping annotation here. I'll fill the details whatever in this cloud vendor object I am getting. Where do I fill? I will fill it in this cloud vendor object. All right, so I'll just say this dot cloud vendor is equal to cloud vendor. All right. And what do I need to return? I will return a success message. Okay. So your post mapping is created. Let us go ahead, start the server and test it. So my server is started. I'll go to Postman. So here I'll change the method to post. URL will be like this. Okay, and in the body I will just say raw data, and here I will add the object which I want to send in the request. So let's say I want to create a vendor ID as C2, vendor name as vendor 2, vendor address as address 2, and vendor phone number, let's say XXXX. I will just send this request and let's see what response do we get. We have got unsupported media type. Why do we get this response? Because by default Spring Boot REST API support JSON, because they will produce JSON and they will consume JSON. Alright, and by mistake it was selected as text here. So let us change it to JSON and again try sending the request. Cool. So we have got HTTP 200 OK here. Sorry. We have got HTTP 200 OK code here. Fine. And the same message cloud vendor created successfully. Alright. Now let us go ahead and test its get. Okay. So let me now create a separate request for get. That will be better to handle. Okay. C2. Let me send the request now. What have we got this time? Vendor ID as C2, vendor name, vendor address and phone number, which we have just now created. Alright, so this completes one cycle, creation of the vendor details and getting the vendor details. Alright, now let us switch back to the editor and create put API. That means if I want to update this vendor detail, how do I do that? Okay, and I'll now create the vendor update API. Okay. I'll just copy this thing and we'll do the required changes. So it was a create cloud vendor for creation. If I want to update, I'll just say update cloud vendor details. Okay. And we'll annotate it with put, because put in HTTP is for updation. So I'll put the annotation as put mapping. Okay. And whatever cloud vendor details are supposed to be updated should be passed here as request body, and those details will be updated here. So this code would remain same. I will just change the message here, cloud vendor updated successfully. Okay. Now we will again bring up the server, test this, put mapping will create, will update and will extract the details. All right. So my application is up and running now. I will go back to Postman. Here currently if I will try to get anything, it will return me blank because we haven't yet created anything. Alright, so we'll create with the help of this post cloud vendor. Let us keep this request body same, C2 vendor 2 address 2 phone number XXXX. We'll again create the vendor, cloud vendor created successfully. Now we will try to extract the information. We have received it. Now let us change this vendor name from vendor 2 to vendor 2 updated, let's say. Okay. How do we do that? I'll just add a new request and we'll use the method as put. Okay. Let me just take the URL because URL would remain same. Okay. And here in the body, with the help of raw, then text as JSON, I will keep the request body here. So let me just copy this paste it here, and what do I want? I want to change the vendor name from vendor2 to vendor2 updated. Okay, so that I clearly see the difference. And now I will send the request. What have I got? I have got cloud vendor updated successfully, HTTP status 200 OK. Fine, this is what we wanted. Now let us try to query or get the request for this C2. Let's see what do we get. So this is a get request, C2 vendor. Earlier we were getting vendor 2 in vendor name. Now ideally we should get vendor 2 updated. Let me just say send. See what have I got? Vendor 2 updated. Everything else remained same because we did not change anything else. All right. So I hope this part is clear. Let us now move to the last part of this session, that is creating delete APIs. All right. So I'll go back to the editor now, and now I will create the deletion request for this cloud vendor details. How do I do that? I'll just copy paste and do the required changes. Okay. So I want to delete, so I will make my method name as, let's say, delete cloud vendor details. Instead of put mapping, I will say delete mapping. Okay. What do I want to delete? I just need to pass the vendor ID here. Normally what happens, basis on the ID, you should be deleting or taking these kind of actions. Okay, so I'll just say string vendor ID. Okay, I'll just pass the vendor ID in the query parameter like this. I will just say vendor ID. Okay, so whatever vendor ID I'll be giving here will be captured here. Okay, so now for deleting this, in this example, since it's a hard coded values, I will just set this dot cloud vendor to null, and will change this response message, which is cloud vendor deleted successfully this time. All right. So now what I'll do, I will bring up the application, create the vendor detail. We will get and check whether it is created, and then we will delete, and then we will get and check whether it is deleted or not. All right. So I hope this entire cycle is clear. So you can see my application is up and running at port 8080. I'll open Postman tool, and here now this time with vendor ID C3, vendor name vendor 3, vendor address as address 3, and phone number XXXX. Okay, or let us change it to YYYY just to see the differences. So I will first create vendor with these details, send the request. I have got 200 OK with the created successful message. Okay, now let us query this whether we are able to get this vendor detail or not. So I've got vendor C3 with all the respected details. All right, so now my next thing is I want to delete this vendor detail. I will add another request. I will just say method as delete. Okay, I will copy and paste the same URL here, and will give query parameter as C3. All right, and we'll send the request. Let's see what happens. Cloud vendor deleted successfully with the HTTP status code OK I have got. All right, now let us go back and query this C3. Let's see whether we now get this information or not. All right, so this is a get method. This is C3. Earlier we were getting all this. Now let me send this request again. I didn't get any value. HTTP status code, you can notice I am still getting 200 OK because request is successful, but it doesn't have any data. So it has given me a blank response body. All right, that means vendor details are deleted. Okay. So here we have created all these 4 methods. I hope this part is very, very clear. If you have any doubts, any question, feel free to ask your doubts in the comment sections. I'll try to revert to you as soon as possible. All right. I hope this session is clear to you. I would really suggest you go ahead and try out this complete demonstration along with this video. So this is what we plan to create, and we created this model class, this entire service with get, post, put, delete, or in short CRUD operations successfully. We have seen, tested all this demonstration with the help of Postman also. I hope these things are very, very clear to you. So just to wrap up what all we have covered in this session, we started with the REST API key important points, followed by the Spring Boot key points. We created a basic Spring Boot application with the help of a Spring Initializer, further enhanced it to the REST APIs for this Cloud Vendor API application. So we created the model class and the entire Cloud Vendor information service. Thank you everyone for watching the session. I hope you found it useful. If you haven't yet tried all those examples, I would suggest go ahead and use and follow along all those examples. That will be helpful for you. If you want me to put this code in the Git repo and share the link, please mention in the comment section. I will provide the GitHub repo link to you guys. Also, I would like to mention, please comment and tell me what next you want me to talk about. I will try to get back to you with that session as soon as possible. Leave your thoughts in the comment section and please share this session with more and more people so that we grow together more stronger as a community. All right. Thank you once again. See you in the next session. Bye for now.